Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 10 of the Airgun World Podcast, brought to you in association with Crackshot, the Southwest Premier Airgun Centre and Ranges. Joining me today, we have Terry Doe, as usual, and our special guest is none other than Mick Garvey. Now, Mick writes for Airgun World. He also has his own show on our Shooting and Country TV YouTube channel. Welcome with us, Mick.
Nice to be here. Thanks for asking. Lovely day to be doing it as well.
Excellent stuff. Now, Mick is our go-to man in the magazine for all things hunting. And as you know, I love my hunting, and so does Terry here. So tonight's show is going to be primarily about hunting, and also it's going to be primarily about hunting grey squirrels. Now, Mick, you do an awful lot of work controlling grey squirrels up in your neck of the woods, up in Cumbria. Can you tell us a bit about it? What group is it that you work with up there?
Yeah, no problem. It's the Penrith and District Red Squirrel Group. We cover a massive area. I'm saying with thousands of acres. There's probably 6 ranges. It's all funded by donations and people just being part of the group and just joining. We do various things through the year, such as fundraising stands. We'll do shows and we'll turn up and we'll do talks. We'll do Women's Institute's talks, local village talks, just to raise money because there's no government money coming. And like I say, there's 6 of us, some part-time, some full-time. And it's an ongoing battle trying to keep the greys coming from down your way up to our way.
Yeah, it's so let's just explain a little bit for everyone watching and listening to this. Our native red squirrels, this is how I understand it anyway, our native red squirrels are being pushed out and eradicated by the grey squirrels, which aren't indigenous. And there's a disease called squirrel pox. Is that right? That the red squirrels contract and die from it. It's a very slow death. It's like Mixie for the rabbits, I believe. But the grey squirrels are sort of immune to it, but they spread it. Is that right?
That's right, yeah. The carriers, obviously, they were introduced in like the 18th century. The Victorians, I believe it were, they brought them across thinking it was a good idea to have these running around the woods. The conditions were just perfect for them, and they're just like taking over. I can't get the figures to hand, but there are millions of greys, and there are just probably hundreds of thousands up and down the country of reds. Very small pockets further south from us. As you go further north, there's more. There's quite a few in Scotland, but we've just had an area in Scotland that's just had its first outbreak of squirrel pox, which is deadly. One grey squirrel can wipe out a whole colony of reds. A lot of people don't get it. They see a grey squirrel because that's all they've ever seen. I think it's a beautiful little furry creature until they see a red squirrel. And that is a game changer. That's a head turner. And then especially if you see a red squirrel with a squirrel pox, that is a heartbreaker. Yeah,
it's not a nice disease at all, is it? Oh, Terry here. He's down in posh Surrey, aren't you?
Yeah. I'm doing my best to head them off at the pass before they get to Mick. But no, he's dead right. They were imported by the mad Victorians from Carolina in America, and they just got them as ornaments for their estates. And with the short-sightedness that we had in those days, they just thought, oh, that'd be nice. Have a nice few fluffians running about the estate. And the problem with them is, of course, not only the disease, they are bigger and more powerful than a red. They'll just outcompete them. They'll disease them out. And exactly what Mick said, they're a very hard animal to win a PR war against because they look so lovely, fluffy, and people think that they're just benign, cute critters, whereas they really aren't. They really are not. If we're serious about keeping one of our most important native mammals, then we all need to eradicate the grey squirrel game. Only visitor to my garden, apart from magpies and rats, that I do my best that it doesn't leave. Everything else, yeah. All the other normal species, pigeons and crows and all sorts, they can eat what they like. It costs me a fortune. But I ain't feeding no greys And I'm not. I'm doing a bit here from posh Surrey, Mick. I promise you.
It's not just the red squirrels, is it? It's not just the pox. I mean, grey squirrels they destroy trees, they strip the bark, and they absolutely decimate our British songbird population. I mean, there's videos on YouTube that I've watched where there's grey squirrels eating fledglings out the nest. Everyone thinks, they eat acorns and that's it, but it's not. They eat eggs, they eat baby birds.
Absolutely, and another scary thing that's come to light recently that we've seen with all the input we've got from various ranges up and down the country and various people doing it. We now think the red squirrels will breed twice a year if they're in good conditions, not pressurised. And we thought that the grey squirrels were the same. We're now thinking that the grey squirrels are probably breeding all year long.
Wow.
Which, if you think about it, the red squirrels might have up to 4 kits, but usually 2 or 3. Grey squirrels will have up to 7, 4 or 5, probably definite, 7 maybe. If they're doing that all year long,
that's a lot of squirrels.
You know what I'm saying?
They have one saving grace, though, the grade. They have one saving grace. They don't taste nice.
They can taste nice.
They do make a lovely meal. They do.
They do. I mean, I don't know. You both you guys know this, but people watching and listening might not. I actually went onto GMTV with my mum, Rosie Barham, who wrote a book called Delicious Vermin. And there was recipes for squirrels in there. And we went on breakfast television to talk about it. We had some lady who was the head of PETA saying that you shouldn't shoot grey squirrels. And we had an argument about what we've just basically discussed. That they're nice furry little critters, but they do so much damage, destroy destroy trees, destroy the songbird population, and kill all the reds. But I got death threats after that, and so did my mum via email from some lunatics. But it's a massive problem in the entirety of the UK. I mean, I know we're talking to you, Mick, and you're up in Cumbria, but immediately before I jumped on here to record this podcast, I called a guy called Brendan Anderson, who I'm friends with on Facebook. Yeah, he runs a group called UK and Ireland Squirrels, the Grey Area, which is basically dedicated to people like us who hunt all around the country and Ireland. And there's 13,000, just shy of 13,000 members on that page. It's a private group, obviously. But he was telling me how, he gets requests daily and he filters through them all. He does a hell of a job, does Brendan. And he has to filter through them all and get rid of the lunatics. And there's a lot of hunters on there, up and down the country, who are dedicated, like yourself, Mick, to just keeping the numbers of greys down so that the reds can bounce back. I mean, you must have some great stories from up your neck of the woods where the reds have repopulated because of the work that you're doing. And I know you're out sort of 3, 4, sometimes 5 nights a week.
Hitting them hard and just keeping at them and breaking up the breeding cycle. And I'm not seeing youngsters. I might see the odd big adult, but we're not seeing youngsters because we're getting to them before they get to that stage and just keeping them down. And it's just, you've got to keep at it. If you want to see reds, you've got to get rid. You don't want to be seeing greys.
But you are seeing more reds now, aren't you? You are seeing more reds up there. I
am. In the areas where the reds are doing well, I'm seeing a lot more. Unfortunately, we're seeing greys as well to a bigger extent. There's more reds, there's also more greys. So it's not something you can think, sort of, take my foot off the gas. It's, you turn your back for 2 weeks and in certain areas they're back in again. And like I said, I've been looking at the 2 areas I just mentioned. We're not getting them back in there just yet. They will do. I know they will. We'll get some straddlers coming in. And then obviously I'll have to...
It's just the same as rats, isn't it? You shoot rats in a barn, leave it a week, there's loads more rats in there. It's not like they're bred in there, it's they've come in from outside.
For those watching who would like to get involved in their own local sort of control of the greys, what is your most successful tactic that you think the people watching this could do themselves? What do you think would be the best? Would it be feeders, setting up hides, feeding stations, that sort of thing?
We respond a lot to reports of greys being sighted with public. because you can only be in one place at a time, and you can only come watch, a certain amount of things. But if the public tell you, you can respond to that. But like I say, there's not just one thing; it's many. Feeders, a quality feeder. Try and keep away from wooden ones, because the squirrels, once the feeder's empty, they'll chew that to pieces. Trail cameras, it gives you the times and dates when exactly they're turning up, so you can respond to that. We also use traps, live traps, because obviously if you've got a red squirrel, you don't want to, kill a red squirrel in a trap. I've also got a little device, so we use some devices called remotes, which is an electronic signalling device, which I've got one on the floor down there, and it fastens to a trap. When the trap's activated, it pulls a magnet off and sends me a signal, so I know I can go out there and I've got a grey in the trap or a red in the trap. But I would say that the biggest thing, and we've all said it, you, Dave, said it, Terry said it, game changer, thermal. You can walk to wood and you can see squirrels 100 yards away, and you know the squirrels by the way they're moving. If you need a good quality one. You can see a little blob somewhere, and it could be a bird, it could be a pigeon, and you don't, ideally you want something that can ID what you're looking for. But there's so many things, but you put it all together, and I wouldn't say there's one thing in particular that works anything better than else. But what I would say is contact your local group, Google your local group for like who's doing some, especially if you're in a red squirrel area. Volunteers, every group thrives on volunteers, and they do such a great job.
When I came and shot with you, you stood behind me with your thermal, telling me where they are, but you had a hide set up and a feeder in a tree. Can you just run us through, for us mere mortals who mostly shoot sub 12 foot-pound? I know you like your big guns and you've got the FAC and stuff. What's the optimum distance? How do you set your hide up? How do you choose where to put it? And you had branches going up to the feeders and all sorts in your setup that I shot, which was fantastic. But you baited them in basically. Run us through that.
Reconnaissance is the big thing. Walk in the woods, see where they are. You'll notice they love the beech trees, they love the hazel trees, they love the oak trees, all for bearing their own fruits. Don't base where you're shooting to from somewhere that's comfortable. You think, oh, this looks nice, set hide up here, and you're shooting somewhere where they're not going to be. See where they are and set up around that. If you remember rightly, I was so lucky. The first day I went in, there was a pheasant feeder in that wood that me and you shot, Dave. And the squirrels were just all over it. I could go there every day and get 10 a day. And then about 35 yards away from that, there was a couple of trees set together, so I knocked some poles in and I made the hide. I made it work for me. I even got a chair in there and a little bench to put the coffee on in the colder days. Camo netting all the way around, just keep yourself out of sight. I tend to find as well, if I'm shooting them, I'll leave them out there. If I break cover and walk out there, that's it. Last thing you'll see is a grey tail dashing through the woods and you don't see it again. So just be patient, shoot them, leave them on the floor. I think I've had 36 on the floor, and the squirrels have kept coming in, and they were just piled up like Vesuvius. Decent bait. I always used to use peanuts. I used to find wheat worked all right, but it was sort of hit and miss sometimes. With a group, we have his own special mix that we mix ourselves. It's monkey nuts, peanuts, stripy sunflower seeds, black sunflower seeds, and maize. And they sort of go in that order as well. The maize is always the last thing to go. You'll go to a feed if it's been heavily hit and it's just be full of maize. But they will take it eventually. But it adds a bit of colour as well. And also, you mentioned the access branch. They love to climb up a branch to the feeder and stop halfway through and have a look around and scan around because they can see the way from an access branch. They climb up a tree trunk, they've got the bite to you. They can't look round till they get to the tray of the feeder. So they'll stop, and it gives you ideal opportunity if you're quick on the trigger. When that squirrel stops, schwack it.
Can I give one of your secrets away, Mick?
No.
About your special additive.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, hang on, which one?
I know you've got a few, but let's just tell the watchers and listeners about the secret additive that it's like crack for squirrels, isn't it? I've never seen a reaction to it like I have when you showed me it, and that is aniseed oil, isn't it?
Yeah. What I do is get the aniseed oil from the farmers merchants or online anyway. But it's really thick, and you mix together, it sticks, and it sticks to everything. So I water it down with vegetable oil or rapeseed oil, sunflower oil, and it just, excuse me while I'm getting notifications, and it mixes it spreads it out a lot further. You only need a tiny capful, so like half a litre of vegetable oil, something like that. Mix it in, and then remember that smell. And sometimes you can walk in the woods, you can smell it wafting through the woods. And the squirrels smell that. They'll smell that from way, way out. So what I've actually got now, I've got like a squeezy bottle. And what I'll do, I'll put the mix in that, and I'll give perhaps the feeder a squirt or the trap a squirt, just to get them attracted to it and get them in there. But it does work, without a doubt.
Yeah.
100%.
Do you think it's they just have aniseed, or is it like you've just discussed, like you've just explained to us, that they can smell it from a mile off, and when you're not there, they associate that smell with free grub?
Exactly, that's exactly what it is. They associate that smell with the feed.
Yeah.
I mean, they can smell. They'll smell hazels from way out. If you crush your hazelnuts up, spread them out. We've just had some hazel trees planted opposite our house. There's some huge farm fields with sheep, and they have cattle and things like that. On the other side of the road, there's like a big forest, and that's full of red squirrels. And they planted hazel trees in the field. And our concern is the squirrels will smell that and cross the road. And as we all know, red squirrels and grey squirrels got no road sense. So that's just that could be a problem. But they will smell. But the point is that they will smell it from way, way out.
As you know, I've got a couple of rat permissions up here in the barns, and I've got a permission where it's an outdoor. It's just like basically junkyard. There's nothing in particular there for the rats to feed on, but they've built homes there, and there's quite a few guys are swearing by the cheap catering garlic mayo, the really thin stuff. They say just slap a bit of that on the ground, and the rats go mad for it. And it's garlic. It stinks.
You've only got to see where they spend most of their life, in muck piles and things like that. So anything smelly they like.
So, have you got anything else to add to that, Terry? What about your experiences?
My experience, again, they're nowhere near as extensive as Mick's on greys, but remember in our fishing exploits day, there's an aniseed particle mix, and there's a load of particles that you get the aniseed mix in. I think Mick's absolutely spot on. I think it's an association of the scent with a free feed. The great thing is with squirrels, as opposed to fish, with a fish, if he gets an association with a feed and being caught, that can put him off. But by the time the squirrel's caught, he ain't coming back anyway, so he's not going to be averse to it. So it's one-way traffic, and it works for rats. There's no reason at all work with squirrels. It's brilliant. It's a great idea, mate.
Excellent stuff. Well, I think we've pretty much covered everything about the squirrels and greys and reds. Is there anything else you want to add, Mick?
Once you get involved, just contact the local groups, and every group could do with the support, whether it be physically or financially. So just give them a shout and get involved. The Reds need you.
Yeah, get onto Facebook and get onto the UK and Ireland Squirrels, the grey area group, if you want to get involved, because Brendan's pretty much in touch with everybody around the country, and he can point you in the right direction. Right, that's brilliant, Mick. And stick around, because we've got some readers' questions here. But before we dive into that, I just wanted to say, grab the latest issue of the magazine, obviously. Look at that. The new 125 years of wire arc. I mean, all of us have owned and shot wire arcs. I've still got a couple myself. But it's their 125 years anniversary this year. They've released 3 limited edition rifles, which are on review in that issue. If you want to grab a copy of that, just head on over to www.airgunshooting.co.uk, and you can grab yourself a good subscription offer in there. You get 13 issues delivered to your door, and there's also a membership to BASA, So you get insurance as well. I'll pop a link down in the description here for you, and there's 15% off in that link. So yeah, go head over there and join. While you're over there as well, you can sign up to our newsletter. We've just revamped the newsletters, and they're weekly now, with loads of content in each and every one. So yeah, it's a very, very good newsletter. You just click on the links, it takes you straight to the website for features like Mick has just been discussing. I think the one that went out yesterday has got a link to one of Mick's features in. So yeah, I'll put a link in the description. Right then, before we hit the readers' questions, we did this last time, didn't we, Terry? I brought up something that I just bought. We're going to call this section "New Things What I Have Bought." This is just a quickie.
Gotcha.
And it's something that everyone on this screen is going to be interested in. A good friend of mine who I shoot with, Simon Walker, put me onto this company. They are called Amps Plus. If you go to ampsplus.co.uk, they do every single kind of rechargeable battery you could possibly imagine or want, plus charging units and all sorts of stuff. Now, I'm shooting my BSA R10 with a HIC micro cheater on top. And most of the IR units and quite a lot of the thermal units that we're all used to shooting use the 18650 batteries with or without the nipple. Now, these ones from Amps Plus are actually 4,000 milliamp hours as opposed to the usual 3.2 or 3.4 or whatever it is you can buy. So that just gives you a little bit extra juice, and they are really good. I must admit, I've been using them now for about a month and a half. I bought a couple of them. They're $8.99 each. That's all they are. And I think with postage, it worked out at just over 20 quid. But yeah, they just give you that little bit extra juice in your night vision or thermal unit. So I thought I'd mention that. I'm not affiliated with them. They don't advertise in the mag. I've not even reviewed them in the mag yet. But I just bought them myself because I wanted a little bit more juice in my night vision unit. What about you, Terry? What you got yourself? Been treating
You know
yourself
what I've got
here.
myself. You know I've got myself because you put me onto it.
I recommended it.
Ta-da! Got one. Okay.
You got one.
In fact, I bought two, and I did buy them. I am not sponsored. I bought them from Envy UK, from Pete Dodsworth, who's been an absolute star. What people won't realise is the actual thermal unit is that it's the same size as an OXO cube with a Smartie on the end of it. And this is the housing you get. You did all the review, and I got it today. I set it up today, and as you know, what I'm like with technology, it breaks and it blows up and it sets on fire and all that. I plugged this thing in and it just worked. It just worked. It asked me for permission to turn itself on the little app, and it worked. So I took a stroll around the park, and I thought, because I knew we were doing this thing with Mick, and I thought, this has got to be able to spot a squirrel for me. It's got to be able to spot a squirrel. If it can't spot a squirrel and tell me it's a squirrel, then this won't do the job. Man, this will tell you the sex of the squirrels if you really want it. If you really want it to, it's the clarity is unbelievable. It really is. So then I had a mooch down the canal, and there's loads of squirrels down the canal. And for some reason or other, the big oak tree at the doctor's surgery's got heaps of them in there because the tragics feed them. And oh man, I'm up there looking at them. You've got a little focus on the front there. I can get them pin sharp. I've got the usual pallets, like 5 pallets, I think it is. And because it's on your phone provides the power, and your phone provides the video, the stills, sound, everything. So I bought one for me and one for a mate of mine, Frank, who you know, Dave. And I've been sending him really, really boring videos all day because he can't wait to get hold of his. He's hacking through traffic at the moment. So I've been sending him videos of stuff, what I've done with this. Listen, it's, what are they, 370, something like 400 quid, something like that. And all that kit you get. 365. That's it. All that kit, including an adapter that you can put that thermal on your rifle as a sight. As a sight, with all the software, and you use your phone as a screen. And again, I've no affiliation. I'm not sponsored or nothing like that. This is just, if you want to do yourself some good, and in controlling greys, seriously, get one of these and get yourself out spotting. It's a superb piece of kit. I can't be more impressed with it, as you can tell. I should be out as soon as this finishes. Frank's coming over, getting his set up. We're going to go wandering. We're going to go wandering down the canal just to play spotting together. We're going to go, all right, couple of weirdos. But yeah, I'm a big thing about, thermal's a big thing of mine. It's, as a late adopter, well, this is the cheapest way to get into spotting. And for my shooting, the spotter is more important than the actual scope. Spotting them, setting your hunt up where they tell you stuff is more important than the actual using a thermal scope. If I had to do away with one, I would keep the spotter. So it's an amazing piece of kit. Anyway, that's what I've been doing, and I'm very, very excited, as you can tell.
Excellent stuff. That's called the T2 Pro. I mean, the company, it's infrared. I think it's a branch of infrared.
Infrared.
These little cameras, they specialise in doing stuff for emergency services and that sort of stuff, and engineers with proper heat signatures where it gives you the temperature and so you can spot a leaky pipe and that sort of stuff. And they've just brought it forward into the hunting market, and it's awesome bit of kit. What are you using at the moment, Mick, for your on top of your rifle and handheld? Because I know you like to chop and change a bit.
I'm using various ones, and recently I bought. I don't know if you can see the rifle in the background. That's the P3. The RTI P3, and I've got the two TD70L on top of that. That's just been. You've got one.
I haven't.
I've got two. Is that the carbine? Is it?
No, that's the performance.
All right. No, I only need a little one.
It's what carbon block. Apparently. Yeah, but that's got, like I said, that's got a TD70 on top. That's quite good. Sub 12, which people may be surprised at. But I thought I'd pacify the purists and the FAC haters. But this is my current thermal spotter. It's the Gemini, the multispectral, which is a thermal and a digital day scope. Plus you get a what they call a fusion, which is like a combination of both. Awesome. And you'll know from using spotters, you constantly use it on your eye, and you get like a blind eye if you're walking and all that, especially at night. You find it doesn't make it any better, but you haven't got that imbalance. So you've got, both eyes, you're probably blind in both eyes. It does. The only concern I've got is the glare back in your face at night.
Yeah, there is a compromise there, but there is a little button on the screen of the phone that you press, which is ninja mode, which dims everything, dims all the buttons, dims the screen, and reduces that glare. So your brightness on your screen sort of on minimal, if you like.
I remember talking to Pete with you, Dave, a couple of years back, when he first started, showing us what these are all about, and obviously you received it. Very nice. Well done.
I received it, reviewed it, and bought it. I wasn't impressed.
Well, it's weird. I've done the same thing. I mean, people always think that you get things thrown at you, and you don't. I would say half the stuff I've got is what I bought myself because I believe in it. If you believe in something, I've not got a problem spending my own money on stuff.
I mean, the only luxury that we have, all three of us here, is that we do get sent stuff to review.
Yeah.
That's but it all goes back unless we think it's. I want one, and then we buy it. All right. Okay, exactly. Let's move on from that. I've got a question from John Dingle. He writes into the mag a fair bit. It says, I've been trying to shoot the rabbits at a livery I have permission on, but I'm really struggling to get close enough to them. I see plenty at 70 to 80 yards through the spotter, but as soon as I try to get closer, they scarper. Would a hide help me? What are your takes on this? I'll jump in afterwards.
Depends what you call a hide. He needs to do a bit more observation and find out where they're coming from, not where they're going to. Track them, see where they're coming from, and to see if the natural sort of features, anything from one sort of bordering pine tree or a laurel hedge or a hedge or anything, where he can set up an ambush within 35 yards, 40 yards max, and snipe them as they come out. And often that is the better way to do it, because you can, if you let them come out, you can knock them over and the others don't know anything about it. Whereas if you let 20 odd come out and knock one over, 19 run away and alert everything else. So it's more observation that's required. Static hunting is often much more productive, unless there's a load of natural cover, which normally around paddocks and stuff you don't get. But I promise it, if he wore some decent camo, face mask, gloves, and he had his back leaning against a fence post, and he kept still, and he was in the right position regarding the wind, he had the wind in his face, he would be fine. I've lost count of how many I've shot just sitting with my back against a post, nice and still, rifle on the knees, just minimal movement. But the key to that, to me, is observation. Find out where they're coming from and see if you can set up somewhere within range of it.
I was hoping Terry wasn't going to mention the wind, so I could mention it, but there you go. If you get the wind in your face, you've got half the battle won. I've got several permissions, which you've obviously got to invite to still, Dave, for the rabbits. There's an abundance of rabbits up here. But I can walk around the field. If I've got the wind in my face, I can walk up to them and I can get within 30 yards. If I'm using FAC, I don't need to, but the closer the better. That's the skill. One guy said to me a long time ago, an old guy, when we were talking about foxing, which is a different story, but he says, long shots for those who can't call them in.
Absolutely. And it's, it's, as you both know, rabbit hunting is pretty much what I've done most of my life, and I've picked up a few permissions up here lately, and I'm shooting with my mate Simon, and we've been doing quite well. The other night it was absolutely howling, it was blowing a gale, but we had a hedge line in front of us where we knew the rabbits were coming out of, and I shot 4 in the space of an hour, just laying prone. Bought myself a sniper's mat, a nice little big padded mat that I'm laying on to prevent me getting wet. But 2 nights ago I was out and I was laying in the middle of the field and I just wasn't seeing anything coming out, even through the thermal spotter. I just couldn't see any. These rabbits are in a warren in the adjacent field, and they're coming across into the lush grass because the field's been ploughed. So they're hopping across that field into where I am, which is basically a big paddock. And I wasn't seeing anything, and I looked to my right, and there was 2 foxes walking along that hedge line. So it was like, right, okay. Now I'd parked the car. It's about 400, 500 yards back to the car from where I was. I turned around with the spotter, and there's rabbits all around it. So I packed all my gear up, walked back to the car, had to turn the ignition on briefly so the headlights came on, just to pull both the windows down, turn the ignition off, so it was there. But the car had been there for 2.5 hours. And I think the rabbits knew there was nothing wrong there because the car was there.
Yeah.
And I just sat there and I watched them come across from the other side of the field. Same again, another ploughed field. It's great. It's ploughed fields either side with a big strip in the middle that's just lush grass. And I watched them hopping across. And I got out the car. I had the door open. Got out the car. With the spotter, there's one. And I know it's about 35 yards. I actually pinged it with the laser rangefinder. It's 35 yards. But I stood there in the dark, put the rifle on top of the door of the car that was open and shot one. Reloaded, as you do, straight away. And then another one popped out and I popped that as well within seconds of each other. And I was, I'd got out the car and I was stood up and I lifted the rifle up and put it on top of my hand, on top of the car door. Yes, it was dark, but if you try and, you know as well as I do, if you're laying prone or sitting down, you make a sudden movement in the dark, they can see you, even when it's pitch black.
Yeah.
But it's excellent advice. It's get to know your permission for a start. Look for the runs. If there's any grass there, you'll see the runs. They're like motorways. You can see where they're coming out of a hedge line. Prop yourself up somewhere where you can get good access to that hedge line where you know it's a safe shot for a start. and you know where they're going to pop out, and try and have the wind either in your face, or if worst case scenario, have a crosswind, but you don't want it coming from behind you, do you?
Patience, like you say. I mean, I think we all agree that it's too easy to think, right, I'm going to move on because nothing's happening.
Yeah.
Just they're there. They're going to come. Yeah. Just be patient.
I've laid there for over an hour before one's popped out, and then they just keep coming. And like Terry said, you don't wait for them all to come out. As soon as one comes out, you
exactly
drop it.
Yeah.
I actually laid there once on another permission that I had a couple of years ago. I laid there. There's a pathway, hedge to my right, horses in the paddock in the field to my left. So I laid up against that fence, and it was 6 foot to the hedge line, and I was shooting down towards the end of the hedge at 35, maybe 38 yards, where I knew they were popping out. Had the face mask on, had my gloves on. Gloves are a must because you move your hand, even if you're just moving your rifle. They're like flags to a rabbit. And I laid there, and what I do is I have my rifle propped up in my shoulder, and I lay there with my fist on the ground, fist on top, like 1 potato, 2 potato. I just lay there like that, still as you like. And I was there for about half an hour. All of a sudden, I had 2 rabbits come out. One of them hopped underneath the barrel of my R10, which is a super carbine. I could have literally grabbed it. They didn't know I was there. It's lay down, be still, and then wait for them to come out.
Yeah.
Okay, Terry, have you got any questions?
Yeah, I've got one. Right, this is a kind of repeat of something we've already done. Somebody saw us somewhere say that we don't advise young shooters, to start with a Springer anymore. And this guy was a bit upset with this, and I'm going to re-justify it. If you want to make a young shooter interested in shooting, give him or her success to start with. You don't start them off on the hardest thing to achieve hits with, which is a lightweight junior Springer. Once they've hit a few with a pre-charged pneumatic, you get them hitting the target regularly. What you should do then is to say, right, I think you're good enough to go up a notch. I think you're ready to take on a Springer. And this will really find you out. Now, remember what you can do. Remember how good you already are. Now, this will make you better, but at first, it's going to be hard work. I think that's the right way round. I didn't used to think that way. I used to think, get them going with a Springer, mainly because it was just a tenth of the price of a PCP. But with the new wave of PCPs that are out there, more affordable and whatever, I've been testing one from that little bullpup from Air Arms for, I think it's 500 quid. It's absolutely amazing. It's an incredible thing. And it's now, I think young uns can start with a PCP. And once they've had a bit of success, then give them a Springer to sharpen up their technique. It's like the kind teacher at school and the really strict teacher at school. The easy teacher, you loved going in their class because you could mess about at the back with your mates. But you didn't learn anywhere near as much from them as you did the strict one. And the Springer is the strict teacher. But your first day at school, it's nice to have a kind teacher that lets you mess about a bit. So I'm justifying it.
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think you're right, Terry. It's like I would say. I think because we all started with Springers, we just assume that that's the way it should be. But like you look back, I started with a Webley Hawk Mark II back in 1970, something like that. And I'd love to have one. I'll probably never use a Springer. Yeah? I'm gonna get hammered for that comment, but it's like you say, it's make it. You want to make the job enjoyable and relatively easy. You don't want to make it hard, especially what I do. I don't want my job hard. I need to make it as effective and efficient as possible.
Yeah. I mean, to put it into a fishing analogy, it's exactly the same thing. You want to take a kid fishing, you want them to catch fish every 10 minutes, don't you? To get that buzz and get into it. And then after a certain amount of time, you can say, right, now you can only use lures, no bait. It's the same thing. Get them shooting a PCP, get them hitting that bullseye every time, pellet on pellet if they can, which would be absolutely brilliant. And then say, right, now you're good enough. Now's the real challenge, because it is a
Try
challenge.
this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Good advice, guys. Okay, let's have one last question before we wrap this up. It's another reader, actually, who writes into the mag regularly, Nathan Jenkins. And it's a bit of a variation on the last question here. It says, does it matter what time of night I'm going out ratting? I'm going out just as it's getting dark, and I've been baiting up spots, but I'm not seeing any rats. And there's definitely rats on the permissions, because I've seen them before, and there's excrement, etc., and holes in the walls and all that sort of stuff. Over to you guys.
I used to go ratting. I used to go when it was dark. I used to think, like, could I go when it's light, get set up before they start coming out? You just tend to get impatient. You're waiting for stuff. Get there when it's dark. Make sure you can get to a place where you're not going to disturb them, because they'll know you're around. It's like when farm machinery's been moved around. You go back to a spot, a farm is shot on, machinery's moved. The rats are a little bit wary because things are different. Plenty of bait on, like I said, plenty of bait. Get there. I'll go when it's dark, and just try and keep any movements and any sort of disturbance to them down to a minimum.
No, absolutely spot on. You can pick them up early, but the longer they've had time to settle down, the longer they've had time to realise there's nothing dangerous about, the more that have been out and about. In 99% of my rat shooting life, the darker the better, and the later the better. Don't push it too late in the summer because it's getting close to dawn, because that's when the predators will be patrolling, and they'll be naturally a little bit wary. But seriously, the closer to the pitch black, it's in my experience anyway. Different permissions vary, and again, I can't emphasise the trail cam. If you've got somewhere safe where you can leave a trail cam, and they're not expensive now either, and preferably the one that will alert you to your phone, then you've got so much intel coming in to tell you what's going on. And if you set up a baited area, you can say, right, here they come. Look, it's 8:30 at night. There wasn't one until sort of 8:10. Now, from there till 10 o'clock, there's been 30 rats visiting it. So you know when to go. It's generally, though, the later the better for me. The closer to the still of the night, when a few of them have been out, they got their confidence. Don't let them go out and feed to capacity. Well, that takes some doing for a rat. But if you've got bait down, don't let them go out and scoff the lot. Make sure that there's enough there to keep them, and nothing big and chunky. More liquidy, grainy, tiny grains and stuff. I've shot them over everything from smeared peanut butter to sugar. And again, with all the aniseeds and all the rest of the fishing oils and the fishing flavours, Dave, sometimes 2 drops in a spray can of a half a litre of water will do it. Anything to bring them away from the natural stuff they're grubbing about eating, to what they would say is a free feed. But it's as always, it's observation. If you can get a cheap trail cam that will send its results to your phone, your whole life is revolutionised. It really is, provided it's not in a place where somebody's going to nick it. That's all.
I find it's if you put the bait down, somebody's going to hold them there that they can't take it and run away with it. Like you said, smearing stuff like I used to get a potato with a lollipop stuck in it and cover it in chocolate spread, and they have to sit there and lick that. And they couldn't take the potato away. And, it's so then like you said, Terry, chunky baits, they'll pick it up and go somewhere else with it. Get something they're going to have to sit there and lick it up, and that was my favourite way.
Dave and I we were shooting rats last week, and I seem to be the mouseketeer. I am the mouse specialist on this particular one. Dave was knocking over rats the size of your foot, and I was inundated with mice. I would say, Dave, what do they have? 15 ton of grain to feed on these rats, don't they? Man, do they like a mouse? Do they like a freshly shot mouse? They'll come out for that. They'll ignore all the grain. And out they come, and you're counting the little dead mice on your thermal when you're scanning. You see the little spots lighting up. And all of a sudden, there's a couple of the spots have gone. Where they got? Oh, no. They've dragged them off. They do love a fresh mouse. I'll tell you. A bit of fresh meat in a rat. They do love them. Each other, won't they? We know they will. But I think a mouse is like a mouse is like tapas, I think, to them. They're just like
something from the deli.
That's what it is.
Well, that's a case in point. That's a case in point, isn't it? Yeah, we were out shooting last week. It was only a few nights ago now, wasn't it? When we got there, shooting in a barn full of grain. When we got there, where I was set up, looked through my thermal spotter. There was one asleep in the wall to my left. There was one asleep in the roof to my right. And I've seen this numerous times in there. We got there at about 7:30 it was, and we finished shooting at 10. So we were there for 2.5 hours. Obviously, you got a bit of disturbance when we first got there, getting set up and stuff. But I ended up with 7. Terry, you had 3 rats and 8 mice. And I was sitting there just, panning round, as you do, with the spotter. The one that was in the wall took about an hour and a half to wake up. And he popped his head out, and I knocked him over. The one that was up in the ceiling didn't move for 2.5 hours. And during that time, we've shot another 9 rats and 8 mice between us. This thing was just asleep. And every now and then, I always thought rats were really sort of clean and that sort of stuff. That's what everyone wants you to believe. But you can see them through the thermal having a wee where they're laying. Yep. They're laying in it. You'll see it. It'll be a white glow, then it'll be a red glow as it's sort of shuffled round a bit and it's gone back to sleep. And then all of a sudden you'll see a big red blob, and it's sort of running down the wall where it's just had a wee, and the thing ain't moved. It's just sitting there.
That's a really important point, because 40% of brown rats carry Weil's disease, and the fact that they anoint themselves with it, they run through runs with it. It's all on their toes. That's why we always use gloves or litter pickers. People who say, it doesn't, I've been doing it for years. Just remember, it's only got to get you once. It's only got to get you once. That leptospirosis, Weil's disease is a life changer for a dog or a human. It's a life changer. In the old days, they used to call it rat catcher's yellows, because it shut the body down. It shut the liver down, or the kidneys down, and the rat catchers used to turn yellow because of it. But that last rat, he stayed there, didn't he, Dave? He stayed there while I set up on him, didn't he? He just stayed.
Yeah.
Dave said, there's one over there. We were putting torches on it. And remember, these rats aren't poisoned, because it's a grain store. They're not putting poison down for them. Sometimes a poisoned rat will sit there and he'll be all bloated and dopey. These aren't. He was just a kip. And there's rats falling all around him. There's spotlights going on him. And I set up under him, put the rifle on the stick, bang. That was the end of him. But no, sometimes they're hyper wary. Other times they're as dopey as you like.
Yeah, but like you say, there's a case in point. You try and get there in the dark. We got there just as it was getting dark, just to get set up. But like you say, Mick, it is patience. It's the same as rabbit shooting. If you go somewhere in the daylight, you've just got to be as quiet as a mouse and not move, and just sit there. If it takes an hour for one to come out, so be it. I think a lot of the time people, they go hunting, and it's like, I know there's loads of rabbits here, I know there's loads of squirrels, I know there's loads of rats, pigeons, whatever. And you get all excited, and then you give it half an hour, and it's like, oh, nothing happening here.
Yeah, expecting too much too soon.
Yeah, you've got to sit it out, haven't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you ever so much, Mick, for joining us, and as usual, Terry.
My pleasure. My pleasure entirely.
Thank you to everyone for tuning in to this episode. Matt and Rich Saunders will be with you in a couple of weeks' time. Terry and I will be back in a month's time. I believe we've lined up Claire West from Air Arms, so that's going to be a really interesting one. We can find out exactly what's going on with the Indian connection. Right, thank you ever so much for watching. Thanks once again to our show sponsor, Crackshot. Head on over to their website, crackshot.uk. Eric and the gang there, they do some fantastic work. They do some fantastic deals in the shop. They'll tailor a package to suit you and give you a good price on it. And also check out their ranges as well. That's just about it from us. Head on over to airgunshooting.co.uk. Click the links below to subscribe. And we'll see you all again in a month's time.